5:32 p.m. And I'm going to go ahead and call to order the May 19th, 2021 meeting of the City of Eugene Budget Committee. Welcome, everyone. It is a privilege to be here tonight, and I want to observe that everyone participating, be they a member of our committee, a member of city staff, or a viewer at home watching live or after the fact, all of us are able to be here as a matter of privilege. Not every member of our community would be able to join these proceedings, and some of those community members who cannot join us are also the ones who will be affected the most by the budget we ultimately approve. I ask everyone to keep this point in mind throughout our work tonight. With that said, thank you for joining us in this remote meeting format we're using in response to Governor Brown's Stay Home, Save Lives order. This format enables the Budget Committee to meet, hear from the community, and take care of business while keeping its members, staff, and the public safe. Following our first item tonight, there will be a time for public comment. There are several housekeeping announcements and instructions related to the meeting format that I need to take care of first. Thank you for your patience while I work through them. Anyone wishing to access the meeting can do so by watching the live stream available on our website, the broadcast on Comcast Channel 21, or by calling in to one of the phone numbers listed for this meeting on the City of Eugene Budget Committee webpage. For those who join the meeting via computer, device, or phone, your microphone, webcam, and phone are automatically muted when you enter the meeting as an attendee. If you wish to participate during the public comment portion of the meeting and haven't already done so, please raise your virtual hand now to join the speakers queue in one of two ways. For those viewing the meeting on a computer, laptop, or other device, click once on the blue hand icon. For those listening to the meeting on a phone, press *9. We will continue accepting raised hands until 5:40 p.m. The meeting moderator will unraise or disallow any requests to speak that are made after the deadline. And finally, I want to thank everyone for their patience, flexibility, and good humor as we work through any kinks with this format that is very new to most of us. As always, feel free to contact the Budget Committee or Budget Office if there is testimony you are not able to provide or wish to get to us in a different manner. The first item on our agenda is approval of last meeting's minutes. So committee members, in your packet, there were minutes from the May 12th meeting. Does anyone have any recommended changes or comments? Seeing none, we need a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I have a motion from John Jasper. Do I have a second? I see a second from Councilor Clark. All in favor of approving the May 12th minutes? I counted 13 votes there, which I believe is the number of committee members we currently have signed in. Were there any abstentions? Any opposed? Motion carries and the minutes are approved. We still have 5 minutes until the public comment eligibility closes. So there's still time for people to sign in and get those virtual hands up. And once again, I am caught off guard by the gap. I don't know why I didn't think it would be different why I thought it would be different this time.
Hey, Ty, I actually have about 5 minutes of comment that I want to make at the beginning, either after the public comment or before. If you want me to do it now, I could do it now and fill your awkward gap for you.
If it'll work before the public comment, then please take the floor.
Yeah, sure. I'm always happy to. I'm a team player. So I just wanted to make a couple of comments. I know this has been a really different budget year and there's still a lot of uncertainty, which is why you keep getting the mountain references about the journey we're on. And so as we kind of go in tonight, I want to just make a couple of comments. And as I was thinking about them, I wanted to be really clear that I have a ton of respect for the role that the city council plays in the policy setting. I have a ton of respect for the role that the budget committee plays in terms of making a proposal better and really being keyed in on what the community is talking about. And then I also play this role of having to sort of uphold that fiscal stewardship of the city. This was kind of a clear priority of the councils and also a clear priority for their city managers. So I offer these comments in that role, not in a defensive place. So I just want to make a few things that are starting to come clear for me. First of all, we did get an answer regarding the $73,000 that I was waiting for from HSC. As you recall, I had talked about building that into the budget, but we hadn't gotten an answer yet. And so I was waiting to see what the clarification was. Given the clarification we got this week, I'm comfortable with that. I would have built it in, although I'll say this, and it's going to be a little bit thematic. I regret last year when we did it that I didn't really flag that that's an ongoing expense if we're using it to increase people's wages. So I think it's not truly a one-time thing. And so if you choose to add that back in this year as one time, I think I'll also be looking, I'll also be looking to build that in as an ongoing expense if that's a priority of a policy priority of the council going forward. I've also heard about some other motions coming forward potentially that could be related to that type of, either COLA increases or wage increases. All of those I think we need to keep in mind as being ongoing expenses and not one-time dollars. And so as we do that, I feel like I have to remind everybody that we're making some pretty significant investments this year in terms of like homelessness and the downtown ambassadors. A lot of those $4.5 million, all of them are based on cutting city services. So every dollar that we now allocate additionally for additional ongoing services is a cut to other city services. And I just feel like I have to keep saying that. And then two other things that are just a concern for me. We still haven't identified ongoing funding for the city's portion of operating the low barrier shelter and navigation center. And that's something that I have continually flagged. Like, I think we're going to need to find about $1 million to $1.5 million a year in ongoing revenues. I think we're going to need to identify that probably in FY23, FY24. There's a little room there. And, but it's something that's top of mind for me, and something top of mind as we're thinking about ongoing ads. And there's a lot of unfunded priorities still out there. As you know, we're getting a lot of emails about climate, lots of things that are on people's minds. So it just being really clear, there's a lot. And so the first time when we met and I gave my proposal, I talked about, or maybe it was last week, they all sort of go together. I talked about, a commitment to involve you as we come into the fall, because after you finish your meeting next week, the council is going to have a number of priority policy conversations around their vision, values, and goals, the CSI, the ad hoc, ARPA money. All of those are going to happen prior to their summer break. I think all of those will happen prior to their summer break. And so as we come into the fall, the only way anything changes is actually through a supplemental budget process. And I've committed to including you in that and scheduling some time with you so you feel like, different than most years, you have an ability to share with the council and with me, what some of your thoughts are on that proposed supplemental budget. So I'm just recommitting to that. I just wanted to make that clear. So 540, boom, I did it, Ty.
Perfection. Thank you so much, City Manager. I really appreciate that. And as per the agenda, we will now begin public comment. This period is for those wishing to make comment on the fiscal year 2022 proposed budget. If you would like to speak during public comment, you must have virtually raised your hand or press *9 by joining the phone. The period to do so has ended. The meeting moderator will unraise or disallow any requests to speak after this time. Per requests made last week, staff are making an effort, as you hopefully see on your screen like I do, to provide the list of speakers by quickly typing them up and sharing their screen. Speakers were put on the list in the order that they raised their hand. Each person will have 2.5 minutes to speak. I'm seeing that we have 12 people who would like to speak and 45 minutes allotted for public comment on the agenda, which means we have time for everyone. The meeting moderator will announce the next 2 speakers at a time. When it is your turn, your name will be announced and you'll be promoted to panelist. Please preface your statement with your name, city of residence, and for Eugene residents, your ward if known. You'll have 2.5 minutes to comment. There are lights on the timer. The yellow light indicates that you have 30 seconds remaining. When your time is concluded, the moderator will demote you to attendee and your microphone will be muted. For those who have connected to the meeting via phone and don't have the benefit of seeing the timer, please be aware that your microphone will be muted at the 2.5 minute mark. And I will leave it to the public comment moderator to take it away.
Hello. As you see, we've got 12 people signed up for public comment. Jacob True, you're first. I'm going to promote you to panelist. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Hi there. I'm Jacob True. I live in Eugene in Ward 1, and I come here again today to ask you about some budgeting priorities. Specifically, right now under the proposed budget, you have a $890,000 increase in the police budget. You can see that in the police budget breakdown in the proposed document. Let's see. So I feel as though that isn't a useful use of funds. I also suggest that we separate out any functions that do serve a useful societal purpose, such as cahoots or the dispatch services, out of the police budget. Any cuts in the budget should be borne by the excess funds that we have allocated to the police budget. We should consider using the CSI funds not to focus in on increasing the number of armed police officers on the streets, but instead on addressing societal issues so we'd prevent needing folks like that around anyway. The primary one that comes to mind, of course, is housing and homelessness services, but that would also be useful. We could also keep the fire engine that I know folks have been discussing before by using the funds that would have been allocated, taken away from that. Instead, consider taking it away from the already slated to be increasing police budget. Lastly, right. Appreciate your time, appreciate your consideration, and I yield back the balance. Thank you very much.
Next, we have Susan Walling, followed by Tom Peck. Susan, I promoted you to panelist. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Okay. Hi, my name is Sue Walling. I'm speaking very quickly on behalf of the Active Transportation Committee. The Active Transportation Committee is committed to helping Eugene achieve the goals of the Transportation System Plan and Climate Action Plan by reducing reliance on automobiles and tripling the percentage of trips made by bicycling, walking, and transit by 2035. The TSP's infrastructure plans are also critical to achieving Vision Zero and to Eugene's economic development. For this reason, we support the Sustainability Commission's proposal to develop a dedicated source of funding to build the active transportation projects included in the TSP. The TSP identifies nearly $72 million worth of essential active transportation projects. These range from an overpass of Beltline in the River Road neighborhood to a protected bike lane on Willakenzie to neighborhood greenways and sidewalk infill projects throughout the city. Some projects are large and highly visible, while others might seem nearly insignificant. But together, they will create a network that allows residents of all ages and from all parts of the city to make many of their daily trips without driving. Unfortunately, Eugene has no plans to pay for building these important projects. The TSP itself states that, quote, the city will need to develop a strategy to fund the improvements listed in the 2035 TSP. City staff has shown impressive success in obtaining federal and state grants to complete such major projects as the active Amazon corridor improvements, the Jessen Path, and the 13th Avenue protected bikeway, and we applaud their work. Staff has also been strategic in leveraging the dedicated bike ped funds from the street repair bond to get the most bang for the buck. Nevertheless, without a dedicated source of funding, it will be impossible to complete the projects needed to support the dramatic change in travel behavior called for in the TSP and CAP 2.0. A dedicated funding source would allow Eugene to maintain local control over our transportation future rather than having to cherry pick and prioritize those projects that are likely to qualify for a particular grant. In addition, a dedicated source of revenue could provide the local match needed to obtain more grants and to build the nearby neighborhood and intersection improvements that would allow residents to safely access the new infrastructure. Finally, a dedicated funding source would help to complete the bike ped network in a rapid and coordinated manner that could be a game changer for residents who do not yet actively use transportation. The Sustainability Commission has researched funding sources that other communities have used to pay for needed climate and transportation projects, and the TSP itself identifies potential mechanisms for funding. The ATC urges you to seriously consider these proposals and or to come up with your own better solutions so that Eugene can not only plan for a more sustainable future, but actually build it. Thank you for your attention and for your dedication to our community.
Next, we have Tom Peck, followed by Zondi. Tom, I promoted you to panelist. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Thank you for the opportunity of speaking with you tonight. My name is Tom Peck. I live in the Friendly Area Neighborhood. I'm on the boards of the Friendly Area Neighborhood, as well as the Neighborhood Leaders Council. And I'm also the chair of the Eugene Wildfire Preparedness Coalition. And I just want to speak a minute. The Wildfire Coalition its mission is to help our neighborhoods to understand the risk of wildfire and how to mitigate it. It's only May 19th and Southern and Central Oregon counties are on red flag warnings for fire danger. This is a month earlier. This is a month earlier than previous years. We are expecting a very hot, dry, fire-prone season. The urban communities are very vulnerable to wildfires, demonstrated in Talent and Phoenix with a loss of 2,500 homes and businesses. Rural communities in Lane County have many resources available through the Firewise loans or grants and other programs, which are excellent. But we need more resources devoted to wildfire mitigation in our urban communities in Eugene and Springfield. We are requesting from the Budget Committee to recommend funding for a fire adaptive community coordinator position within the Eugene Springfield Fire Department. This coordinator could dramatically accelerate fire fuel reduction, the creation of defensible spaces, and wildfire evacuation planning in our community. And secondly, the funding and support of a wildfire risk assessment program that the Ashland Fire and Rescue is piloting. I'm in that course now. Homeowners in Eugene need to know their risk and ways to mitigate it. Wildfire season is quickly approaching, and we haven't recovered from the 2020 wildfire season. Many people are still living in motels and have joined the ranks of the unhoused. Wildfire recovery is extremely expensive, costing billions of dollars. Wildfires are now...
Sorry, Tom, we're out of time. Next, we have Zondi, followed by Emi Richardson. I wanted to point out the yellow light is not on for the last 30 seconds. Just FYI. Zondi, I promoted you to panelist. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Zondi.
Okay, you can hear me now? Nope.
Yes, we can hear you. It appears that you are muted again because we can't hear you anymore.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
No, now you're muted.
Okay, you can hear me now.
Yes.
Thank you. I want to thank council for delaying a decision on the deal points of the steam plant today. I think what was presented to you showed an irresponsibility on the part of city staff. I also want to thank, is it Naya Ross or whoever is responsible for creating the list so that we can know when our speaking turn is. I want to say in regards to the budget that I hear Mayor Vinnie's often tout what allegedly City Manager Sarah Maderi also touts, which is upstream solutions in this book entitled Upstream, which advocates for addressing root causes. And we must acknowledge that policing is the epitome of a downstream solution. And so if we are going to tout upstream solutions, we ought to be looking at reallocating funds away from the police, and to do that on an aggressive schedule, and at least an aggressive schedule as we advance development, which does not take into account any systemic racism, or does not take into account systemic racism on any front, it appears. With that, I also hear Mayor Vinnie's also touting that we need these developments to increase the tax base in order to provide the services that people are asking for. If that is going to be part of the reasoning, then City Council ought to be presented with a rigorous analysis of the trade-off between public subsidies and growing of the tax base, factoring in things like MUPD, subsidies. Trump Opportunity Zone is maybe slightly irrelevant since that's taxation at the federal front, but to the degree we understand that federal funds dwindle for services that we need, and then et cetera, et cetera. So I will say for 1059 Willamette, in 20 years after the project is completed, so maybe 25 years from now, the proposed project would have brought in a total of $2.9 million over 20 years. So roughly, $290 a year. If we consider, and that's after several years, it doesn't bring in that much at first. And of course, with the MUPD, nothing for 10 years. If we consider a $600 million yearly budget and 1.1 million in cash or SDC waivers, et cetera, up front to them, it is hard to, stand by this vague.
We are out of time. Next, we have Emi Richardson, followed by Lynn Woodridge. I promoted you to panelist. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Hi, my name's Emi Richardson. I'm the Vice Chair to the Sustainability Commission, and I have a letter to read on behalf of the Sustainability Commission. It's addressed to the mayor, the city manager, city councilors, and the budget committee members. As the city begins its annual budget cycle, please keep in mind the immediate and long-term needs for sustainability funding in the city. Short-term needs to maintain sustainability staffing. When the pandemic began and affected long-term budget projections, one of the sustainability programs, 2 staff positions went from being listed as a permanent position in the proposed budget to a temporary position in the final budget. It is imperative that this position be maintained for the long term. Please move this position back to being listed as a permanent position in this year's budget. The long-term needs, we request to fully fund the implementation of the city's climate action plan and to fully fund the city's bike and pedestrian project list from the transportation system plan. See the Sustainability Commission proposal on the creation of a climate fund for a list of potential funding sources. Funding for Sustainability Commission grants. We also wanted to thank the Budget Committee for the last year's allocation of $5,000 for the Sustainability Commission to give grants for community groups to host educational events for the public. While it has taken longer than expected to get our bylaws updated and systems in place to award grants, we are excited to begin taking applications soon and provide you with updates on the use of the funds. Please plan to replenish this fund in the future as we help host great events for our community. Thank you for your consideration to Eugene Sustainability Commission. And I yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Lynn Woodridge, followed by Trotter. Lynn, I promoted you to panelist. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my name's Lynn Woodridge. I'm currently living with my 92-year-old dad in Ward 6, and I'm also a homeowner in Ward 8. I served as the co-chair of the Active Bethel Citizens for the last 2 years. The Bethel neighborhood is the largest of the neighborhood associations in Eugene. We're able to reach our entire area with our newsletters and have been able to provide the newsletters in both English and Spanish. We have been able to promote our successful recycle events and provide emergency preparation information. We're also collecting ideas for our upcoming Bethel area planning. We couldn't do this without the outreach funds provided by the city. Active Bethel Citizens endorsed and partnered with the Kindness Campaign to use outreach funds to print Choose Kindness lawn signs. During the COVID shutdown, I planted almost 200 signs as they were requested all over our neighborhoods, raising the spirits of our residents. After July 2021, the Active Bethel Citizens will be applying for a neighborhood matching grant to work with Friends of Trees to plant trees in the Bethel neighborhoods. One neighborhood under consideration is directly across from the J.H. Baxter plant. It has been shown that trees can draw toxins from the soil. We're waiting to submit the application as the planning can't happen until November at the earliest. This work and many others have been made possible because of the City of Eugene. The neighborhood outreach funding we received from the Office of Human Rights and Neighborhood Involvement, as well as the neighborhood matching grants, is critical to our community being able to respond to our residents' needs. Tonight, I'm asking that the Budget Committee recommend retaining the funding allocations for neighborhood associations for FY22 at the same levels as FY21. I would also like to say thank you for the additional line item of $20,000 for beginning the Bethel area planning outreach. It is much appreciated. Having access to neighborhood outreach funding and neighborhood matching grants is critical to neighborhood associations so that we can collectively begin to engage in the important work of economic and social recovery due to the pandemic. Thank you for the opportunity to comment and thank you for your service.
Thank you. Next, we have Trotter, followed by Cascadia Wildlands. Trotter, I promoted you to panelist. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for providing me an opportunity to testify tonight. My name is Sophie Trotter, and I'm a student at the U of O and a resident of Ward 1. I'm testifying tonight on behalf of the Fossil Free Eugene Coalition. As a coalition, we are dedicated to creating a just transition for our city away from fossil fuels. To address the climate crisis, we must invest in programs that will increase community resilience, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and support the people on the front lines of this crisis by providing for a just transition off of fossil fuels. And for that reason, I am asking that you create a just transition fund modeled after the Portland Clean Energy Fund to resource low-income and BIPOC communities to transition away from fossil fuel appliances in homes and businesses. Invest in retrofits to increase building efficiency, resiliency, and safety, and provide funding for frontline-led renewable energy generation and storage projects locally. Fully fund the implementation of City Climate Action Plan 2.0, allocate appropriate funding for staff to implement CAP Action B4, CAP Action B3, and CAP Action B2. Funding for the Climate Action Plan 2.0 should also prioritize the EV Action Plan. And I'm asking that we fully fund the city's bike and pedestrian project list from Transportation System Plan, fund the Sustainability Commission Grants Program, and make permanent the budget and positions for city sustainability staffing, and allocate funds from the Federal American Rescue Plan, which is proposed to give a sizable amount of funds to the city of Eugene to fund climate recovery actions stated above and assist the city in implementing CAP 2.0 actions to meet the goals of the CRO. In finding the resources to fund these projects, it is imperative that the financial burden is not placed on low-income and BIPOC communities. And as such, we encourage the city to create a targeted fee on the city's largest emitters, as Portland has done, to generate further revenue to support these actions. Thank you so much for your time and your service.
Next, we have Cascadia Wildlands, followed by Selenablick. Cascadia Wildlands, I promoted you to panelist. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi there. My name is Dylan Plummer. I'm resident of Ward 2 and the grassroots organizer for Cascadia Wildlands, a local 501c3 organization fighting for environmental protections and climate justice in the Pacific Northwest. I'm testifying tonight on behalf of Cascadia Wildlands and the Fossil Free Coalition. As a coalition, we are dedicated to creating a just transition for our city away from fossil fuels, and specifically we're advocating for a three-plank platform consisting of the following: banning the construction of new fossil fuel infrastructure in the city, mandating all utilities in the city to provide 100% renewable energy by 2030, and levying a fee on Northwest Natural and other climate polluters to create a fund to transition low-income and historically marginalized communities from fracked gas to electric appliances, and to retrofit these homes to increase efficiency and to increase climate resiliency. As Tom Peck mentioned before me, we are in a climate emergency and our city is facing greater and greater challenges from climate-driven wildfire and other disasters. These challenges will only continue to face our city and be more kind of disastrous in their impacts if our governments at all levels do not take bold action to limit greenhouse gas emissions and to protect our community members from the baked-in warming that we're seeing. And the city of Eugene has long led in setting goals for itself in reducing emissions, yet a kind of consistent problem that we've seen is a lack of funding to implement those goals. And so the Fossil Free Coalition is testifying or is really advocating for greater funding to be placed for the city to meet its Climate Action Plan 2.0 goals and different policies within that. And so specifically, I'm testifying today to request that you create a just transition fund to resource low-income and BIPOC communities to transition away from fossil fuel appliances in homes and businesses, invest in retrofits to increase building efficiency, resiliency, and safety, and provide funding for frontline-led renewable energy generation and storage projects, fully fund the implementation of the City Climate Action Plan 2.0, allocating appropriate funding for staff to implement CAP Action B4, home energy score, including for rental units, CAP Action B3, energy efficiency requirements in rental code, CAP Action B2, COE to report to City Council different options and funding strategies to support programs.
I'm sorry, we're out of time. Next, we have Selenablick, followed by Janet Morrison. Selena, I promoted you to panelist. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Hi, my name is Selenablick, and I live in Lane County, just outside Eugene city limits. I'm here today with 350 Eugene and our Fossil Free Eugene Coalition. As a coalition, we are dedicated to creating a just transition away from fossil fuels in our city. I personally care about the climate crisis for so many reasons, but the simplest one is, as a young person, my life will be heavily impacted by whatever actions we take or don't take today. Funding our city's ambitious climate goals must be a top priority because, frankly, city budgets are irrelevant if we do not have a habitable city to live in. As such, I am testifying today to request that you fully fund the implementation of our city's Climate Action Plan 2.0, including appropriate funding for staff to implement CAP 2.0 actions B2, B3, and B4. I also request that you fully fund the city's bike and pedestrian project list from the Transportation System Plan and fully fund the Sustainability Commission Grants Program. Finally, I request that you allocate funds from the Federal American Rescue Plan, which is proposed to give a sizable amount of funds to the City of Eugene to assist the city in implementing CAP 2.0 actions to meet the goals of our CRO. And as Trotter mentioned before me, it is imperative that the financial burden for funding these projects not be placed on low-income and BIPOC communities. We encourage the city to create a targeted fee on the city's largest polluters, as Portland has done, to generate further revenue to support these actions. Thank you for your time.
Next, we have Janet Morrison, followed by Ebony Morgan. Janet, I promoted you to panelist. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Good evening, and thank you. My name is Janet Morrison, and I live in the River Road neighborhood. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to the committee. In this past year, the worldwide pandemic has affected all of us in a myriad of ways. Some of us have lost loved ones, cared for others, or been ill themselves, lost jobs, or been faced with economic hardships than I can only imagine. I have had more time to learn about and become more aware of the privileges and advantages I have because I'm white, cis, not ultra-abled, middle-class income woman who owns my own home, and I have a safe refuge to reside in each and every day. I have health insurance, which allows me to seek help and support for both my physical and mental health needs. When we ask public servants like you, with your knowledge and commitment to serve the needs of the community, we want and we truly need you to consider and make funding available for services that serve the health and safety for all in our community, not just people like me. The recently released Ad Hoc Committee for Police Policy Reform report has 50 proposals. I fully support and appreciate the work of this committee. The committee has done and hope that progress on the reform can start immediately. I do not support increasing the police budget, however. Like multiple other cities around the nation are currently implementing, I support diverting funds from the EPD to instead invest in the health of our community. In defense of police officers, they are being asked to provide more and more services for which they are not trained, educated, or set up to provide. Instead, I ask you to divert funds to instead bolster violence prevention programs, fully fund mental health professional teams such as Cahoots to respond to mental health crisis situations, and additional investment in housing first projects. Please consider diverting funds away from punishment and unequal enforcement to community health. I yield my remaining time. Thank you.
Next, we have Ebony Morgan, followed by Ellen Rifkin. Oh, Ebony, you've been promoted to panelist. You should be able to unmute yourself. No. Okay, now you've been promoted to panelist. You should be able to unmute yourself. I apologize.
Thank you. My name is Ebony Morgan. I am a registered nurse, resident of Ward 4, and the Cahoots program coordinator. While Cahoots has been highlighted internationally, we see the need for expansion within our own community. Response times can be many hours for us due to the amount of need versus available teams, and it's clearly better to respond to a crisis quickly. We are successful due to mutual trust with the community, and we have to be honest to do right by that trust. As the community requested more Cahoots, we had to reduce our operations. We dropped 6 hours a day for 6 months because we aren't retaining the staff to fill the shifts. We lose high quality, well-trained staff to better paying jobs, and they are sad to go. Cahoots needs to offer living wages to our crisis responders, and the community deserves for Cahoots to be the best version of ourselves, not the cheapest. We need to support the professional growth of our team and administrative roles We need to fund an on-call system so that our response will never be unavailable to Eugene residents. If we focus on keeping cahoots as cheap as possible, crisis responders won't be able to grow or find financial security within their role. An expansion beyond our current capacity will remain a dream. I wrote a letter on behalf of the cahoots team that highlights our current situation. And if it comes to any of your inboxes, I would appreciate your time learning more about our current situation. I believe in the investment in the mobile crisis response because I believe in alternatives to law enforcement. And I understand that the roles that we hold are different and they can't be treated exactly the same, but I do think that the people in the field responding to the people that have lost loved ones or are struggling with their mental health or just need somebody to talk to so that nothing bad happens deserve people that are equally as well cared for as the other first responders in our area. Mental health does not have to mean underfunded, and I believe that it shouldn't anymore. When Cahoots is underfunded in our contracts, it does not, that cost goes to Whitebird. And the donations that Whitebird gets that could be serving our community members that need other kinds of support go to supporting a program that has contracts with the city. So we appreciate the city's support of our program so far. And we just want to express that we need more support in order to provide this service to the degree that the community is requesting. Thank you so much, and I yield.
Next, we have Ellen Rifkin, and Ellen is our last speaker signed up for public comment tonight. Ellen, I promoted you to panelist. You should be able to unmute yourself now. Ellen, I don't know if you can hear us, but you are able to speak your public comment now if you'd like to. We can move on in a few seconds. Okay, I think that concludes our public comment for tonight.
Thank you so much, Liz. I appreciate that. I do want to take just a moment for people who might be listening on the phone and can't see chat to know that a few people from a few of our spectators mentioned that when we showed the names, that meant they couldn't see the committee, and I appreciate the feedback. This is a work in progress on finding a way to share who our speakers are. I'm happy that we were able to do it, and I think we'll continue working on processes. So welcome the input on that front. I see Councilor Zelenka had raised your hand. You had something you want? Oh, misclick. Gotcha. In that case, it is now time for us to move to our scheduled budget committee deliberation. And for this, we will be starting with a round robin like we have in previous meetings. I will be putting in chat the full order we're going to use now, which I also emailed out to everyone about an hour ago or 2 hours ago now. And we will be beginning with Councilor Surrett, followed by Raina Jackson.
Thank you, Chair. So I don't have any, brilliant words of deliberation to offer. I had some questions related to public comment. So one of the, first, thank you everyone who came to give us input. We really appreciate it. I'm sorry that Ellen didn't get to speak. So I did want to ask if someone could tell us verbally rather than in the chat, because I don't know that everyone can see the chat, to remind folks that they can give us input through the a link that sends an email to the full budget committee. Can someone remind me where that is found so the public will know as well?
A link to email the.
Go ahead, Liz.
Okay, a link to email the budget committee can be found through the Eugene budget website at eugene-or.gov/budget.
So if you go to the City of Eugene's website and look for the budget page, there'll be a link there. You can fill, it's basically a form, and you can give us public comment. So, and then I wanted to ask, I thought I recalled, but I might be misremembering, that we did we allocate any additional money to fire mitigation work? I know that's not the same as what the public comment was asking for, but I just want to see if that was part of this proposed budget.
Can you repeat that, Counselor? Was it the
funding for us to do mitigation for wildfire prevention?
There's not, the mitigation money that we put forward before was one-time dollars to put that whole plan together. We anticipated, there's some ongoing work that we do in parks and open space and with fire around kind of those edges. You're having a work session about this next week, and there's coincidentally a lot of opportunities right now for funding at the state level and others for this type of work. So we're exploring that, and we can certainly talk about it more after the work session, but there's not an additional wildfire piece in this year's budget.
And I thank you. And I also seem to recall, I believe Senator Wyden and Senator Merkley are pushing at the federal level for a significant investment in wildfire mitigation. Now that would be nationwide, but they're Oregon senators, so they're obviously have Oregon in mind. That's potentially a resource for some of the work that the gentleman who spoke tonight is interested in. City Manager, can you speak to the concern about the sustainability position going from a permanent to temporary?
Yeah, so last year when I did the proposed budget, I talked about how my initial budget that was proposing that we have an additional sustainability position ongoing. But when the pandemic hit and I did my amended budget, I had put it in as one time. Our revenue projections hadn't changed. It's in there again as one time, and it's something I'm actively looking for as being one of our priorities to add back. But it's in there. It's not ending this year, but I haven't identified yet an ongoing revenue source.
Great. Thank you. That's all I have for now, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Raina will be followed by Councillor Clark.
Hi, thank you. I just have a follow-up question in regards to the police budget that people have brought up. On page 116, the last paragraph, and again, just clarification here, it says police reduced its operating budget by 1.6 million. And then on page 117, there's no, this is under community safety, the budget increased by 1.4 million. So can I just get a little bit more clarification in regards to what has been increased and what has been decreased, just from me? Thank you.
So I think Chief Skinner or somebody else on the call can probably talk about the community safety initiative. That's part of our bridge funding work we've been doing, stuff that's already been budgeted, and maybe somebody on the finance team. I can tell you that the general fund portion of the budget, police reduced their budget this year by 1.7 so that we could fund those high level priority items that I talked about during the proposed budget, which includes homeless services, includes some of the downtown work, and all includes ambulance transport, those items. And Chief or somebody in finance, if you want to talk about the 1.4 from CSI.
Yeah, I can talk briefly just about that. Thanks for the question, by the way. For the better part of a year, we've been running parts of our strategy on the community safety initiative on borrowed money from the general fund, and we're attempting to try and pay that back now. Some of the things that are going to be happening in the CSI are the ongoing things that we have now, which is several positions that make up our street crimes team, as well as dispatchers and CSOs, which are the non-law enforcement response to some of these other low-level calls for service. So when we think about that funding, that's something that we have in place now that we're trying to continue on. Additionally, last year, before the pandemic hit, we tried to kind of take another bite out of the community safety initiative with a couple of other really key support positions within the organization, and that was put on hold. And so this next year, we see a little bit of an increase in that for not necessarily for police officers, but for support positions to help us fulfill our mission. So that's likely what you see in there is the general fund decrease and then the CSI increase. And then just for edification, the majority of any additions to a police budget as articulated in the public comment oftentimes, especially in a status quo environment, is as a result of contractual language we have in the collective bargaining agreement or our grants or contracts that have escalators for CPI. And so that's why those budgets have a tendency to go up. It's just wages. It's not adding anything new other than just meeting our contractual obligations.
I'll just add one more thing, and that is there was a pause on some of the community safety initiative hiring last year due to the COVID pandemic. So there was kind of a catch up in this budget year, which was why there was a significant increase in that area.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Clark will be followed by John Jasper.
Thank you. I wanted to say thank you to all of those who took the time to come and give testimony to us this evening. I'd like to apologize for having missed some of the preliminary discussions in previous meetings with work intruding in my world, but my understanding from some of those is that it's possible that John may have a motion with regard to the elimination of a fire engine. I'd like to say if that is in fact the case, I'll be very supportive of that motion. And if he's not planning to do so, I will. I would think that in what could have been a historic disaster last year, and as we enter into maybe one of the most fire-prone summers in our history, it would be the exact wrong time to cut a fire engine. So that's the only issue in this year's budget that I feel very strongly about and missed the opportunity to say previous to now. So wanted to get that out there. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll have John followed by Councillor Semple.
Thank you very much. I'll just be really quick. Appreciate the public comment. And yes, Councillor Clark, I will be putting forward two motions. One, to maintain the existing apparatus service level, and the other will be to begin the pilot project for the community response units, so that we can kind of separate the two issues. But both of those motions I do intend to be putting forward at our next meeting. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, John. We'll have Councillor Semple followed by Eliza Kaczynski.
Thank you. Also, a big thank you to the people who took the time for public comment. It's really important, and I'm grateful to you. You know, it's no surprise this is a really hard year for the budget, and there's a lot of things we don't know yet how we're going to alter funding because of the CSI community comments and the ad hoc committee. So I'm grateful that the committee is going to keep going as the supplemental budget is figured out. So I know there's a sense of urgency. I really get that, but budgets can't, it's not wise to just make snap changes. It has to be done carefully. So I just ask people to be patient, keep telling us what you want. And we're working on getting you what you want as best we can. I think the neighborhood group funding hasn't changed. I think it's the same this year as before. So I'm really in favor of neighborhood groups, although I think they need to be bigger and we need to work on making them more inclusive, have better meeting times. Maybe we need more groups that fit different groups. But I'm really glad that funding is staying the same. In the past, I've advocated for it to be increased. And the sustainability position, I want to put out some assurance about that this has happened before in many different subjects, that a one-time position funding for programs keeps getting it until we can find an ongoing funding source. So not that that's the ideal position to be in, but it's a strategy that works. And so please don't think that just because it's one time, it's the only time. It's not. The frustration with the climate and sustainability, of course, it is critical. There's no denying that. It's also critical that we keep people alive and employed and housed. So it's a big dilemma, and I understand both viewpoints. It's probably going to take some new funding sources. We have a work session on that, and the Sustainability Committee gave us a list to look at. So mostly I'm saying I understand your frustration and your hopes, and please hang in there. Thanks.
Thank you. Liza will be followed by Councilors.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone who is here tonight. I also thank you, City Manager. I was really pleased to hear that there was sort of a space to continue that funding for the Human Services Commission that we did last year, and as well, sort of, I've long kind of felt there's been a lot of cases where we've given one-time funding to something that really was an ongoing expense, and removing that one-time funding ended up being sort of a hidden cut. And I know what we would see with this is these service providers, if we weren't able to replace that funding, getting a cut. And so I very much appreciate that. As a point of clarity, does there still need to be a motion made for that to happen? Or is that just kind of a thing that will happen?
So I think there needs to be a motion to make it happen, and a source. And I think I would put it in as similar as some of the others where we've talked about. It could be a motion to have council prioritize that as part of the ARPA. Okay. Or if you have another funding source that you could propose, you could do that too.
Okay, so I will intend on making that motion, and I'll work with staff with funding sources. Over the past couple of weeks, I've spent a lot of time thinking about the human services budget and our priorities surrounding this. And one of the things that I've definitely seen is that the way in which we fund things is really affecting how we end up prioritizing them financially. As Councilor Zelenka mentioned last week, we do most of our human services work through either money to the HSC or contract with service providers like Cahoots. And a lot of cases, what we see there is that they don't have the kind of contractual obligations that Chief Skinner was talking about, or escalator clauses, or negotiated rates for cost of living increases. And one of the things that I worry about is that makes those areas disproportionately likely to end up with stagnated funding or even reduced funding in situations like this, because we don't have that built in, well, this is one of these things that's going to increase with inflation every year. And when I was looking at the service levels, there are 4 things in service level 1. and they are police, fire and emergency services, municipal court, and the intergovernmental human services program. The other three of those areas have increased by between 25 to 50%, 58% over the last 6 years. If we were not adding this additional human services money back in, our base human services contribution would have actually decreased. And so I worry that some of the levels that we're looking at this, because of the way we're funding it, isn't aligning with what the stated priorities in our financial management policies are. And so, interested in how we talk about that. And I really appreciate the challenges of finding ongoing funding and the willingness to kind of have those conversations. So thank you.
Thank you. We'll have Councilor Zelenka followed by Catherine Ryan.
Yeah, thanks for everybody that came out and spoke today. I too like to see the climate change positions be permanent. And I put a work session poll out to actually try to get us additional funding to make that permanent and enact the CAP 2.0, as well as work on homelessness issues by funding it 50-50 through probably a property tax levy. So more to come on those two issues. I'm glad that the Budget Committee will be involved in the CSI and the ARPA funding discussions after the budget process. I think that's the right place to have that conversation. I guess I would just reiterate what the City Managers Council, that we be careful about funding ongoing things with one-time funds. That just kicks the can down the road, and the down the road budget doesn't look all that much better than this budget. So it doesn't really help us very much. It probably just makes it a little worse. So look forward to the rest of the conversation. Thanks.
Thank you. Catherine, followed by Councilor Keating.
I want to start by saying a huge thank you to staff who pulled together all of that amazing information that was in the packet for this week. It was a lot, and I very, very, very much appreciate it. It was really helpful for me, and I'm hoping that for other folks who are kind of trying to track all of this and know kind of more at the category level what's going on, that feels like a great place to be able to point them to say, here's kind of the full picture. So thank you for that, as the person who was obnoxiously asking for it over and over again. I'm wondering on kind of the climate piece, if with all of the things we still don't know, if there may be some place in if the federal infrastructure package ends up going through, or kind of some of those places where there's dollars, that there are more kind of one-time projects that are on that list rather than ongoing things. If there's maybe some opportunities there, that's sort of more of a rhetorical question at this point, I think. I do want to kind of, I think, because I haven't talked about this, I am working on putting together a motion for next week related to Cahoots funding, and kind of some of the working to address some of the pieces that Ebony was speaking about this evening. And so it's still coming together fully. But if there's anyone who is kind of interested in that or wants to know kind of more details of what that might look like, please feel free to touch base, and would love to connect with anyone else on that. And I think that the other piece that I wanted to just touch on briefly is kind of, I've been struggling, and I've talked with kind of a couple folks about this, of the balance of how, wanting to be really respectful of the weird time we're in and the commitment to involving Budget Committee moving forward. And that sort of tension with feeling like, well, but what if this is what if this is the chance to try and do things? And so I'm going to maybe leave a little door open, that I may have some motion kind of related to to that feeling. I'm not quite sure what that looks like. And I think it will continue. It's changed in the last 24 hours. And I think it will, but it will be done by the end of the day on Friday, whatever it is. So appreciate the continued conversation on that and from the council members who have kind of reiterated support for that as well.
Thank you. Councillor Keating, followed by Sean Londahl.
Thanks, Chair. I look forward to Budget Committee member Ryan's motion in regards to cahoots. And if you want to communicate or connect offline, I'd love to entertain that. We recently received a report at council about comparing and contrasting the 2018 and 2021 community service surveys. And I was fascinated to read that the vast majority of residents recognized the vital need for law enforcement to respond to more calls in less time. That was across the board. BIPOC communities, Spanish-speaking communities included, expressed support for increased response to more calls in less time. And further, BIPOC residents in the 2021 CSI survey called for favorability in police training and responsiveness to the needs of different cultures. And a vast majority of respondents do not feel as safe as they did in years past. Implementing real reforms are key in supporting the implementation of state law, the 8 vital reforms and recommendations from our lawmakers and the recommendations of our ad hoc committee are key, but I do not subscribe to some of the comments made calling our public safety team, our law enforcement officers, the epitome of a downstream solution, or looking to budget for useful societal service, as if law enforcement has not done the yeoman's work that they have done, especially under Chief Skinner's transformative leadership. So I just wanted to make a point that I'm very willing and longing to increase the living wage of folks who are working at cahoots and find ways to increase retention and increase that budget item, but not at the expense of the safety of our Eugene residents. I'll leave it at that at this point, Chair, and I just wanted to call out those 2 comments. Actually, I take that back if I've got 25 seconds. Councillor Zelenka recently proposed a work session in regards to revenue toward alleviating houselessness and investing in meeting our climate recovery goals. I want to thank Councillor Zelenka for that, and I thank my colleagues for advancing that work session. That's going to be a critically important conversation. I look forward to that one as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Sean will be followed by Councillor Ye.
Thank you. I have a question about the status of the funds that were set aside a few years back for a homeless shelter. Because sort of since that time, there's the River Avenue project that I'm unclear about where funding is going to come from, if that's a county project or a joint partnership between the city and the county. So just overall, could I get an update on where that fund sits and what we're planning for it?
Sure thing. So those funds are still in place. We have not expended them. We always anticipated it would go towards our portion of the capital of a shelter. And at the time we were talking about a pop-up shelter. The River Ave site came up as an opportunity. And much of it has been funded through CARES and COVID funding, which, because it's been used as a medical respite facility through the pandemic. We're currently working on, and an RFP is out for services to kind of finalize that as a low barrier shelter. And I'm saying we, the county, and I'm saying we because we've been approaching this together, The state legislature, I think, has identified $5 million that can be used for both construction and or operations. And so what's happening right now is we're going through the design process. We'll go through some construction process. Most of it will be funded from that. We're hoping there'll be some additional dollars left over to be able to kickstart some of the operations. And it's possible that our 900 will go towards something in the capital, or it's possible that at some future time, the council could choose to say, we'll use that to fund the first year of our operations as we try to figure out how we're going to do that. So that's where it's at.
Okay. And so I guess I wholeheartedly support the use of those funds or any funds towards developing or supporting the operations of a homeless shelter, low barrier, or whatever. But that money's sort of been sitting there, not doing anything for a couple of years. And some of the changes we're talking about in this budget, some of the reductions, the fire engine, for instance, are one-time reductions lasting a year or maybe 2 years to try to build up our reserve fund. And so I just wonder if there are funds like this that we in prior years set aside for one purpose, but now plans have changed. And maybe we need to reconsider moving that back into reserves because we have other needs right now, like a fire engine or whatever motions are going to come into play that can help build back those reserves without cutting those costs. So it's just something I'm considering.
Thank you. Councillor Ye will be followed by Councillor Groves.
Thanks, Chair. First, I just want to apologize for having to keep my camera off. I am having some connection issues, and if you all start freezing again, I will turn my camera off again. It seems to help. There's been a lot of thoughtful comments tonight, and I really appreciate this conversation. I wanted to agree with what Eliza said, which is something I often think about is, with our contract services and how, the reason we do that is because, or I would like to think the main reason is because someone else has more expertise or is better suited to do a job than to have the city, and not because we're looking, to save money by not supporting people at a living wage. And I'm not saying we do that, but I think it's easy, like Eliza said, to kind of get behind a little bit as you're going through budget to budget to budget and maybe not making those calculations of are we really adequately funding stuff. And so I just want to appreciate that comment that she made, and it kind of connects with our human services and our cahoots conversations that we're having. Other than that, I just really appreciate the conversation, and I don't have really anything to add at this point.
Thank you. Councillor Groves, followed by Ryan Moore.
Thank you, Chair. And I want to thank the people that did speak tonight. I think it's always good to be hearing from our community. I also want to applaud Councillor Keating for the observations he shared in looking at the CSI pulling. I had some of the same thoughts. I don't feel that we are as far apart as I feared we might be in going into this. And not Councillor Keating and me, but just what we got back from the public. So I really will look forward to those conversations. Experience has taught me that we need certain responses at certain times, and we have to be careful not to dilute those too much. So that will be interesting to me. I also had a question. Ebony from Whitebird was talking about cahoots, and I'm a little confused. She said that Whitebird's having to make up funding shortages that the city of Eugene is paying, yet I'm hearing that money gets turned back from Whitebird because they can't spend all of the cahoots funding. So I don't necessarily need an answer tonight on that, but I would appreciate maybe a clarification of that discrepancy so that we can really understand if we are going to produce more funding, where's it going to go, or is it just going to be given back to us again? So that's one thing. I also want to say that I too will be supporting John's motion. Of course, I want to see it finally fleshed out, but for prioritizing the refunding of the fire engine, this is an important resource. Again, I have a pretty good idea of what it means to have it or to lose it. I laughed last year when Eliza says she likes to read planning documents and budget information when she goes to bed at night. I count firefighters. And I actually did that the other night. I just stopped and I counted how many firefighters we had for minimum staffing on the street in 1980, the year I started with the fire department here, and how many we have today. I excluded supervisors and I excluded the ambulance because we didn't have an ambulance in 1980. So I excluded the ambulance from 2021. And the reality is, if you look at our fire suppression companies, in 1980, we had 37 firefighters for minimum staffing. In 2021, we have 38 firefighters for minimum staffing. At the same time, the population went from 105,624 to 176,464. And meantime, the call volume has gone through the roof as well. And if you take a wildland fire, for example, you don't need 100 fire engines after it reaches a point of conflagration. You've already lost. The trick is to hit it early and to hit it hard. And that's where a strategically placed engine can make all the difference in the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Take it away, Ryan.
Thank you. And I'm going to echo Catherine just to start off. The crosswalk or the summary based on service categories is exactly what I've been dreaming of for quite a while now. It's really helpful. Thank you to staff. I guess it's kind of a question. Is this something we can hope for in future proposed budgets? Or is that kind of dependent on how appreciative we are tonight?
Well, that definitely always helps. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I'm like 110% appreciative for what it's worth.
Perfect.
To respond to some other comments from tonight, I know we all know this, but I think it bears repeating. The conversation about CSI funding and the police budget, it's not necessarily a question of reducing public safety, right? The conversation is more about reallocating and finding other efficiencies, right? And so I think it's just a bit of a false equivalency to make that connection, right? So just to get to some of the other public comments we had tonight, for the Fossil for Eugene people, so glad you all testified tonight. It's really helpful to hear from you. I do want to point out one thing. The Portland Clean Energy Fund was based on a corporate activities tax, which is now illegal for local jurisdictions to do. In 2019, the state legislature passed the Student Success Act, which preempted that sort of tax. And so I was glad to hear Councilor Zelenka talk about a property tax levied as a means of doing that, because that's still legal. I just wanted to point that out. I wanted to say Active Bethel Citizens is a model neighborhood association. I'm really happy to hear of all the good things they're doing with their funding. And I'm especially happy to hear about the tree planting efforts. Next, a question about today's packet. So on page 26 of today's packet, I just noticed the right-of-way cleanup for the proposed budget. It's only about $20,000 this time. And that's a marked reduction from past years, which I didn't expect. So I just wanted to learn a bit more about what that means. Is there anyone here who could talk about it?
Yeah, I believe Matt can talk about that. Let's just give him a second in case he's like running across the room to unmute.
Yeah.
Which apparently is the case. Good job, Matt. Slide
hi, all. I'm just trying to find that as well in the packet. If you can give me a second. Ryan, that's on page 26 of the PDF.
Yes, from the meeting materials for tonight.
What? There's the storage program. So, I mean, that's a great question. I am not honestly completely familiar with where our budget folks got all these numbers. What I can tell you is that we spend much more than that out of a combination of funds. So road fund and stormwater funds predominantly. So I'm not sure Vicky or Twyla may be able to speak to where that number specifically came from.
Yeah, actually, Liz was the one that rounded up all that information and she can help you.
Yes, hi. The information is based off of the actuals that were coded to certain project codes that I worked with other staff to be able to verify that those were actual spent for right-of-way cleanup. The difference is going to be that the FY22 proposed budget may not be coded exactly to those project codes. So it would still be an estimate. This is very much a working tracking system for these types of services. It's the first time we've put all of this information in exactly this format. So we would see some of these change throughout the budget cycle and then on actuals as well.
All right. Thank you, Liz. That helps me. Ryan, what I can tell you is that for FY22, we have in our Public Works Maintenance division, we've actually reconfigured our services to have a dedicated team that's working on right-of-way cleanup. So it's that's something I could circle back with you on, Liz, but we have a supervisor and 2 permanent employees that are working full-time in that area. And we actually are looking at bringing on 2 more limited duration. So that's probably not reflective of the total cost that we're spending.
Thank you. And yes, I totally appreciate this is a first of its kind sort of document, and I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I know that this is a hot button issue in our community right now, which is the reason I wanted to ask tonight, specifically right-of-way cleanup. I think asking an open forum like this does a lot of good in helping people be educated about exactly what's going on. And I think transparency like that is the whole purpose of me being here tonight. So anyway, sorry to put people on the spot, but I appreciate the presentation.
Thank you, Ryan. This is the moment that I like to offer our favorite guest, Mayor Vinnis, the opportunity to chime in if there's anything she wants to add.
Yes, thank you so much, Chair. I don't have a lot to add. I have really appreciated the questions and the comments. I appreciated the testimony. I have a sort of thematically, I want to say, in response to comments around our relative investment in homeless services, the way we have shifted funds this year in order to enable some of those services to go on and to be expanded as they have in this past year. That, you know, one of, I think, our ongoing concerns, one of our abiding concerns, certainly with our partner, particularly in the county, is the sort of capacity of those critical provider organizations. So Ebony's testimony spoke to that. I think Eliza's comments speak to that. I think we want to sort of create those strong relationships and partnerships with those providers. I don't think it's a solely city responsibility. So I think this is where our partnership with the county is extremely important. So we are we have our own contracts. We have a relationship with the Human Services Commission and helping to fill their allotments, their allocations. But I do think that I'm happy for everyone to raise that awareness, because I think we really do want. This is a longstanding problem, and we want to be able to look at our investments as how are we over time sort of building our strength and our capacity as a community to meet this need. And, you know, we're building the foundation for being able to do that, but it's not all going to happen in one round. So I really appreciate the conversation, because I think it needs to be in the front of our minds as we go along. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Structurally, I'll mention for the meeting that we do have a break scheduled in the agenda in about 15 minutes. The only thing on the agenda afterwards is further deliberation and a brief wrap up. So whether we need the break or whether we are done depends on how much more people have to say, and I will play that slightly by ear. So during my first round, which I'm about to begin, if anyone who wants a second round that directly follows up, that'll be good before the break, that directly follows up on the topics we've been touching on, please go ahead and raise your hand while I'm speaking. And as for my first round, I want to start by going back to the beginning of the meeting with City Manager Mederi's comments. And I really welcome and appreciate the commitment to involving the Budget Committee going forward. I think Councilor Surratt did mention at the last meeting that that's really a unique thing that we've to see from a city manager, and mentioned an appreciation, and I absolutely want to echo that. I think it's really great. I will say from the check-ins I've been having with committee members, the main response is a lot of people are now interested in exactly what that looks like. So we have some further conversations to flesh it out. If you give a mouse a cookie, as they say, we are excited to be as involved as we can and looking forward to working on what that looks like and what that means. I do want to say thank you to my co-chair at Active Bethel Citizens, Lynn, for chiming in on another example following on last meeting of more of the good works that neighborhood associations do in our community. I'm very glad that we are maintaining outreach funds at the same levels they've been at. I want to thank everyone who came to speak about the police budgets and about CAHOOTS funding. That is obviously an ongoing conversation. I watched with great interest the CSI survey reports and the reports from the ad hoc committee at the last 2 Monday work sessions. As far as budget implications, we are certainly waiting for these supplemental budget opportunities and for council to lay down policy positions, which will take some time as they work through the reports. But I will say philosophically, I'm certainly forming a ton of thoughts of my own on as I listen to the presentations. I was particularly struck with the CSI with the theme of public safety being a broader conversation that the community wants to have that includes but is not limited to police. And I think where Councillor Keating pointed out that it was relatively unanimous through the surveys that people do see our police as a portion of our public safety system. There was also a lot of discussion that there are other elements, and that when we talk about public safety, we want it to include everything, is what I'm seeing and hearing from the community. And I very much appreciate and echo that same position. I also want to thank everyone from the coalition of climate partners that came to speak tonight, and also mention that we received numerous emails in the last couple days on those same topics. And I think that I'm glad to hear that we're not seriously, that even though it's listed as one time, we're not seriously looking at that sustainability position as a potential cut. That's more of just budgetary magic. And I'm going to need a second round at some point, but we'll go to everyone else's first. Thank you. So I see 6 hands. If you'll give me just a moment to mark who that is. Of course, I'm spreadsheeting this because I'm me. So if Councillor Surratt would like, we're going to keep the same order for the round 2 as we did in round 1. So if Councillor Surratt followed by John Jasper wants a second round, and if anyone besides the 6 that are up now raises a hand, we'll slot you in behind. So take it away, Claire.
Thank you, Chair. And I'll turn off my camera after I speak because my lovely husband brought me some dinner. I think I wanted to respond to Ty's comment about a process for involvement of the Budget Committee. First, I think it would be wholly appropriate for this committee to pass a motion that just kind of affirms the fact that the Budget Committee will be reconvened to give input on the supplemental budget. And then I think the framework I would recommend it to be very similar to this process, which is the Budget Committee deliberates and makes a recommendation to the City Council, and then it's the City Council's purview to actually adopt the final budget. So off the top of my head, I can't think of any reason not to have that same formal process. And And then I just wanted to point out, as we're talking about the CSI funding, the Community Safety Initiative funding, you know, as a distinct bucket, and this, you know, understandable concern about how much is being dedicated towards police officers versus other things that support community safety and wellness. There is funding for a new full-time position within our library services of a youth after-school program specialist. So that's a new FTE in the city that didn't exist before, that will be devoted to those upstream solutions that folks are commenting on. So it didn't get a lot of fanfare. There are other FTEs being created with the CSI. So I see that as a relatively large investment in our youth programming services, because we don't have a lot. And so there's another whole FTE there. So I just wanted to call that out.
Thank you, John, followed by Eliza.
Thank you. This question is for Chief Skinner or perhaps finance staff. Some of the comments about cahoots makes me question whether or not my presumption was correct or not. As a outside contractor, I was under the assumption that they were bidding on a contract. They would submit a price to provide a level of service. As we've increased this over the years, am I wrong about this? Are we telling them the service to provide and how much we're willing to pay them for it, or are they contracting like a traditional subcontractor would?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Yes, we do have a contract with Cahoots, and if I'm not mistaken, it was a 3-year contract that's coming to an end. We have a new contract we need to negotiate with them starting this new fiscal year. And we've been really working very actively with Ebony and everybody else, better understanding their true costs of the service they're delivering now, and trying to figure out a way to build into the budget an escalator over the next 36 months to get to that livable wage based on what they believe their comparables are. And so when we think about this new contract, that would hopefully be built in there. And I think we'll be in a nice alignment to maybe whatever Catherine might be thinking around her particular motion. But the police department has been in negotiations and really working very, very closely with Cahoots to better understand that. So more to come on that, but we were kind of waiting to get through the budget season before we really finalized our service level agreement and new contract for them. We have agreed tentatively with Cahoots to maybe enter into a 1-year contract because we're in this pandemic and not knowing what the budget's going to look in the out years, and then spend more time really focusing on a more comprehensive service level agreement for a longer contract. So
if just to make it simple for me so I understand this, we're not looking at necessarily, if this motion does not go forward or is not made from somebody of the committee to increase the funding for Cahoots, that doesn't necessarily mean a reduction in service level or underfunding their employees. This is a contract negotiation that is underway.
I think what we had was originally the 3-year contract and the amount of money that we were paying them, which is just shy of about $900,000, which is only a portion of what we pay out of our budget for Cahoots, because we supply the vans and the operating costs and the technology as well. Is over the course of the 3 years, they have experienced the cost of delivering the 36 hours of service, which is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week van plus the extra 12 hours there is costing more than what the contract is providing for them now. And so we're trying to, and we've made the recommendation in our budget numbers out of my finance department to try and make them whole and have an inflator for their salary to start getting them to that livable wage. We see a tremendous advantage in and them being able to hire and retain people that we get to see day in and day out for months and years, instead of the type of turnover they experience. We have to try and form new relationships every 6 months with somebody that's left. So we have a vested interest in helping them get to yes on that. So yes, we'll negotiate a contract, and it'll be for hopefully at least 1 year, if not longer.
Okay, thank you very much.
Eliza, followed by Councilor Zelenka.
I kind of want to say a little bit, like, I know it's not Eugene's sole job to figure out how these partners paid their staff, the people who are out there in the community doing this work. At the same time, you know, I think that the way you kind of look at funding models and how you do this for these types of nonprofit organizations may be slightly different than traditional contracts, or the way that we really think about it. And one of the things that I was really glad to hear the chief just now saying that he was talking about escalator clauses for the Cahoots contract. And I think we need to start thinking about how do we build that into our thinking for these other people who aren't our direct employees, but we are asking to provide service to our citizens, to the people in our community. And then the second thing I wanted to say is, you know, looking at these service level documents, these service level priorities, which were passed by council, you know, I'm really attuned to the fact that the role of budget committee is to make sure that money's being spent in the way that council has prioritized it. And one of the things that this document says to me is the key way that council has seen, and has seen for many, many years, the role that human services plays in public safety. That they didn't put, you know, Human Services Commission in tier 2 or tier 3 or tier 4 or tier 5, any of those other tiers. They put it in number 1 with police, with fire, with the municipal court. So they were seeing that those systems all had to work together. And you know, if we're not funding those systems in a way that where they can effectively work together, I think that's important to note as well. And then I think, as much as I'm really a fan of this service priorities document, because I definitely feel like it makes me trying to figure out how do I, you know, approach things, prioritize things. I also want to point out that it hasn't been updated in 25 years. And I can only imagine that some of the perspectives that council has about what is a priority and how we want to meet the needs of our community may have changed in the past 25 years. And we can, like, climate is not mentioned at all in this document. And even though we can say, like, oh, it's a thing in the budget that nobody but Eliza's ever read, I actually sat there and did the math on how this influences how we spend our money. And there is a reflection. Like, if you line out these priorities, while there may be some differences with, and now I'm out of time, so I'll save it for later.
It is about priorities as well, period. Although I'm not sure you're going to like it, period.
Councilor Zelenka, followed by Catherine.
Chief, if you're still there, Chief Skinner, who is it that sets the hourly wage of the Cahoots folks, Whitebird or the city of Eugene?
Councilman Zelenka, I can't speak to historically how that's happened. Most recently, I know that Ebony has done some work around trying to better understand what a market wage is for the type of work that they're doing. And she's gone out and looked at other jurisdictions that are doing similar types of work and has thrown a number at us as far as where she would like those workers to aspire to. It's fairly ambitious and over about 50% above what we pay now. And so my commitment to her is to try and do the best we can over the course of the next 36 months. Instead of trying to bite it all off at once. But I can agree based on my experience that the work that they're doing is under market, but so far we have not done any of our own city internal work to look at market wage for that particular one where we've relied on their data.
Yeah, thank you, Chief. I was on the Human Services Commission for a decade, and this is my 25th budget with the city of Eugene. And my experience with our human services provision is that we do it through nonprofit. And frankly, they pay much lower wages than I think they should. And for me, it's the market just doesn't value these kinds of services. The same is true for teachers and childcare and all sorts of services like that. It's a very systemic problem, and the market doesn't always reflect the true value. The market wages don't always true value what we value them at. I think it was probably about 10 or 15 years ago, I proposed a motion, actually passed, that we actually have the human services be a percentage of the total general fund budget. And I think that lasted an entire year and then was overturned. So one other question, I posed the idea at the beginning of this budget committee process that maybe what we should be doing with regard to the ARPA funds is formally prioritizing the add backs of all the cuts that we're making. And I'm not seeing that in the process. So Chair, I'm assuming that that's being left to people's making motions about that, about what they want to see added back as part of the ARPA funds in a separate process. And if some things don't get a motion on them, they're not going to get talked about.
So in terms of talking about it specifically as part of this May budget cycle, yeah, it's the motions. The city manager did indicate that while encouraging us to make prioritizations a factor in how we make motions for certain items that we want to use those funds for in the future, that doesn't mean that will be exclusively what those funds get used for. So items we don't specifically pass motions to prioritize will then be treated the way they would have been treated after the priorities are accounted for, is my understanding, unless the city manager wants to chime in.
Yeah, I think, Councilor Zelenka, what I tried to say when you asked this question before is I wouldn't be able to recommend going through and suggesting we're adding all of this back in some sort of priority order, because there's a lot of ongoing cuts and things that we're still going to have to be doing next year. So to me, that gives if you add all of this back through ARPA funds, we're going to burn through all those ARPA funds and we're not going to be able to sustain those services. The current numbers I'm looking at is we're going to use a lot of those just in terms of our lost revenues over the next couple of years. So in terms of sustaining services, my recommendation will continue to be, if there's a couple things that you feel really strongly about that council should prioritize in their discussion, let's get those out there. But I just can't recommend taking the whole list and putting it in a priority order. You, of course, can do that. I just can't recommend it.
If we had about 3 or 4 more meetings, we could probably do that. So I'm not actually suggesting we add any more meetings, but good point that 2 things. One, funding ongoing things with one-time funds, ARPA funds, is not the best plan. And secondly, the pandemic did have a pretty big hit on the city, and it's going to be ongoing for quite a while. And so the ARPA funds are intended to help us with that. And there's no such thing as money without strings from the feds. The ARPA funds have constraints on them, and as Ryan was pointing out, I don't know how many pages the guidance is, but it's probably a big, thick book about what they can and cannot be spent on, and so we have to be careful about that and be informed by that guidance, so that we're not proposing things to be funded that can't be funded with the ARPA funds.
Thank you. I want to take a moment, since not everyone can see or read our chat, to read into the record clarification from Chief Skinner. That is that, quote, "We are in a current contract with Cahoots that is good until 2023 and included a wage inflator, but have agreed to renegotiate to try to move them up in the pay incentives." So for anyone that isn't able to see chat, that is an update there. And I'm looking at, we've got 4 more people in round 2 and a couple people that are looking at wanting a second round. I feel like that's a low enough number, or a third round. I mean, I feel like that's a low enough number we can power through and end this meeting a little early without the break, unless anyone really prefers a break. I'm seeing thumbs ups, I think, to powering through. Let's go for it. So we've got Catherine followed by Ryan as we continue second round.
I just was going to chime in kind of on the Cahoots conversation and I was hearing Councillor Gross's question earlier, right, about like, well, we've given them more money before and they couldn't use it. And so I'm to the best that I can, I'm really trying to do some good homework in a relatively short period of time to have information included kind of in the rationale section of the motion that addresses like some of those questions that I've heard. And, you know, kind of includes information from talking with Cahoots. I'm meeting with the chief, you know, kind of to have it sort of give that picture. So just a heads up that will be hopefully a robust-ish version that will help address some of those things and kind of really get at what, you know, sort of why this feels like it's an important thing.
Thank you, Ryan, and then Councillor Clark.
Thank you. Yeah, let's see. So from my understanding, it seems like Cahoots' difficulty with spending down their funds may be directly related to the wages they're able to pay, right? If you're not able to staff your positions, you're not going to be able to spend the funds, and you're not going to be able to staff your positions if you're not paying a wage that's attractive to the people that would do that work, right? But the reason I raised my hand, would it be possible for the people watching this meeting just to give a very brief roadmap or overview of the plan for the CSI funding discussion? There are a lot of people watching that this is why they're watching this meeting. So I think that this might be an ideal time just to throw out some important dates or meetings to keep an eye on. And also, I have to turn my camera off briefly to give medicine to one of my cats, so sorry.
Thanks, Ryan. I can give you what I'm currently thinking. So the council had their meeting last week, as you know, and got the full report on what they've heard from the community so far through that process that the council kind of lined out. The next step in my mind is a follow-up work session with the council to give a really clear update about where we're at. So here's what the original plan was. Some of the information we've already seen. Here's what the buckets are. Here's what we've invested so far. And, you know, here's where we're at. And also here's where we're at with revenue coming in, because as you know, the payroll tax we just started collecting it in January. We've been, you know, April was the first quarter reporting. We're starting to see those numbers. They're not, I don't have a final report on those, but I don't think they're necessarily as strong as we thought. And so I think we just need to give a here's where we're at, and then kind of make some determinations about where council might want to go and whether they want to adjust some of the percentage areas. As you remember, there were like certain buckets that are in there that are eligible for CSI, and it's possible that council is going to want to shift some of those, and we may not have funding to add to that yet. So that may be in the out years. And we just need to finish getting a little bit more data. And I assume we're going to do that before they go on their summer break.
Thank you. I yield back my time. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. Two things. Number one, I don't need an answer to this question immediately, but I would really like a follow-up either to the entirety of Budget Committee or to just council as the manager sees fit. I sense that it's possible we may be increasing at some point, if not in this budget year, amount of money, both for, we will be increasing the amount of money we pay Cahoots for whatever the contract ends up being. My question is, and I value their service. Fact is, when I was a young guy, I had a roommate once that worked for Cahoots, and I thought what they did was the most amazing thing. They're awesome. But I wonder, do they have any kind of required certification as people who respond to these type of situations? In other words, when we have people serving on our ambulances, for example, we require medical certifications, we require particular types of schooling to cover our liabilities. My question is, do they require the same thing of Cahoots employees? Number one. And number two, are they insured in the same way the city, or are our contracts available to self-insure a Cahoots response in the event of a lawsuit or in the event of some kind of tragedy? And again, those are questions you can answer later. My real question here is a delicate one, and I want to be very respectful of the manager, and I want to be very certain not to tread on the city charter in any way, but I think I'm free to ask this sort of question here. My friend Councilor Zelenka and I have had kind of a years-long ongoing battle, and tonight we've touched on it a couple of times. I've always said I thought we should have, as a council, a priority setting session before we go into budget, and his point has always been that, hey, once you set the budget, that's the priorities, you know. And that's a reasonable point, I think, that once the city, you know, when you look at the city budget and where the most of the money gets spent, you see what the city's priorities are. So my understanding, manager, is that our city's executives are paid by the city near similar amounts. And my question is what we pay our executives an appropriate subject as a policy matter or as a budgetary matter for either the budget committee or council? First question.
Yeah, I don't know if you're treading on the charter or not. You might be. I think that the executive team is, like most of our, like all of our non-represented employees, in a band that has kind of a range of where they can fall. That was established at the time it was established. I think it's probably fair to say that band was appropriate. I think over the last few years, you know, we're continuing to look at that, especially as we're out recruiting some executives. So I don't think, I think it would be awkward to set policy around pay for executives, just as you're not involved in union contracts and other of those. But I think you should just know that it's something we're continually looking at, as we are looking at for all of our non-rep employees who all had a pay freeze in the last year, which has been challenging as well.
Before my comment, Catherine, additions on where I should be careful.
Well, you're in a public meeting. So actually, I think the provision that you're speaking about is the prohibition on influencing or attempting to influence the manager regarding city personnel. There is a provision that speaks about this discussion in public meetings. So having the discussion out in the open. Now, there's obviously things that are very clearly delegated to the city manager, including hiring all these people and also, you know, how they're compensated and all those things. So I wouldn't say you just violated the charter, if that was your question.
Very much for that. I sleep better now knowing that. Lastly, I would say that I think that our city's priorities, as reflected in the budget and reflected in the level of responsibility and comparative to other communities, ought to apply to that topic. And that's just for the manager, I suppose. Thank you.
Thank you. For my, I just had one thing that I was scrambling to get to and ran out of time, which was one thing I noticed in the public testimony on our climate action plan was some emphasizing of specific priorities and order of in which that the people giving testimony would like to see things funded. I was wondering, do we have a prioritization internally at the staff level of which climate action items we would hit first if we had a little bit we could put towards it?
You know, I would want to talk to our staff in terms of what that would be. For me, the first priority would be, you know, when we have ongoing funding, we'll be making sure that we have the staff in place to do that, because you have to have people doing the work in order to generate more revenue and more, you know, outside contributions. So that's where I would be. And I'd have to ask Chelsea what those next things would be.
Thank you. That's all I had. The only person who explicitly indicated they wanted a third round during their second was Eliza. So I'll go to her now. And if anyone else wants a third round, throw a hand up now.
I wasn't actually indicating I wanted a third round. I was just indicating I was going to stop mid-sentence and leave y'all without knowing what the rest of my thought was.
I apologize for taking your showmanship away from you by making you explain the magic. I do see John's hand.
Actually, I'm just responding to Councilor Clark and I guess Councilor Zelenka also in this is I would sure appreciate the councilors figuring out amongst themselves what role they want the budget committee to play. Because if the priorities are what is reflected in the budget, then that puts a bigger, you know, onus on the budget committee to reflect the will of the city. If our job is to reflect the will of council, then it's council that's making the priorities. And it'd be great if that list was something newer than 25 years old. So I would just toss this out as just kind of an open challenge to the councilors to figure out what role they want the budget committee to play in the deciding of the priorities within the city. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mayor Vinnis, what do you have for us?
Well, I just wanted a little, it might not be top of mind for all the budget committee members, but council is working through a process of their goals and values and vision statement, and that is coming back to council in the next 2 weeks or so. So I think this, you know, that is in process. So I don't think it's it will be well defined, and it will certainly be well defined as you go into the supplemental process. So you're here, when you get into the supplemental process, the council will have dialed some of that in, and so you'll have that to reflect on.
That is a really good reminder on timelines. Thank you very much. Do we have anyone else who has anything else they wanted to chime in with at this time, or are we ready to wrap up? Seeing none. Our next steps is that we have a meeting next week, Wednesday the 26th. And that is the meeting where our intent is to make all of our various motions that we might want to make, either for prioritizing future efforts or for amending the proposed budget that exists, and then moving the budget to City Council. If you have any additional questions between now and then on that process, please email Vicky. And also, if you have any intended motions that you haven't fully fleshed out, please work through that effort and get those into Vicky by the end of the day on Friday, May 21st, so that we have time to fully prepare the packet for next Wednesday's meeting. That meeting does also include another opportunity for public testimony. And so the process for motions, as we all know, is going to be similar to last year. We're going to just run through them one at a time at that meeting. I think we've done mostly signaled all the motions that people intend to make. That's very helpful. That's going to, I think, avoid people being caught off guard, which allows us to focus more on the substance. And I'm looking forward to that conversation next week. Definitely keep reaching out to finance staff if you have any more motion work that you want to get done between now and the end of Friday. And with that, once all the motions are in, I'm going to work with finance staff on figuring out the order. We'll hear them in and set that meeting up to be as smooth as possible and run right through it and meet our obligations and go on from there. So I am looking forward to seeing all of you again in a week. And until then, let's adjourn this meeting at 7:32 p.m. Thank you, everyone.